Today on Personally Speaking, our guest is the actor, musician, and writer Jonathan Jackson, five-time winner of the Emmy Award. Please stay with us. Hello and welcome to Personally Speaking. I'm your host, Monsignor Jim Lisante, and the Emmy Award-winning actor Jonathan Jackson joins me once again. Many of us know Jonathan for his role as Lucky Spencer, the son of Luke and Laura on the ABC daytime drama General Hospital. That role won him 5 Emmy Awards. Jonathan also starred in the television series Nashville, and his film credits include Insomnia, starring Al Pacino, Deep End of the Ocean with Michelle Pfeiffer, and Tuck Everlasting. In 2004, Jonathan Jackson started the band E-Nation with his brother, actor and drummer Richard Lee Jackson, and friend Daniel Sweet. Jonathan can currently be seen in the For King and Country film Unsung Hero, a true story about the importance of family and faith. He's been married to Alisa for more than 20 years, and together they're the parents of Caleb, Adora, and Titus. Jonathan Jackson is here with us today to talk about his career, his marriage, his family, and the incredible faith and values that matter the most to him. Joining me now, I'm so pleased to welcome back to Personally Speaking the wonderful actor, writer, and singer, Jonathan Jackson. Talking to Jonathan Jackson, delighted to have him back on Personally Speaking. A couple of things, Jonathan. You have a movie, Unsung Hero, and of course, your music is ever present. You're writing, you're doing many wonderful things. But you know, and I know that one of your primary vocations has always been being a parent. And years ago, you told me a story about Caleb. He was just a kid, but I remember it. And it was some child in the schoolyard had taken a plastic bat and whacked him on the head. And your son, instead of popping him back, turned to the kid and said, I forgive you. Now this is a young
Wow.
man who's almost 21. Tell us about Caleb. What did he grow up to be?
Well, it's I'm so glad you remembered that story because that is, as a parent, these things slip your mind. So I'll remember that one. Now that's amazing. Well, thank God. I mean, he's the same good-hearted,
Mm.
soul, really. Um, I mean, every soul has challenges and difficulties, and the pandemic was challenging for everybody. For us, we moved to Ireland right when that was beginning, so we had some additional challenges as well. Um, but Caleb he's really he's a remarkable person, and our friendship is very close. So we stay connected. We have long, conversations and talk about all sorts of things. He's quite a film buff. He directed his first short film. He's written 4 screenplays now. And he's always showing me new directors and new films, and
Mhm.
so that's been fun to watch as well.
Now, Jonathan and his wife Alyssa also have a beautiful daughter named Adora. Now, again, because you and I, have been on separate continents even for a while, I have pictures in my mind of this young and adorable child. But
Mhm.
recently online, I saw a picture and she's grown into this, knockout, beautiful, stunning woman. I'm just wondering, like, as a protective dad,
Mhm.
I would think that a daughter of all the children is one that you just have to have some kind of anxiety or concern about. What have you done to protect this beautiful young woman?
Well, I mean, it's a very important question. And I'm very thankful that Adora as well, she's a really she has a lot of discernment, I guess you could say. She's not a people pleaser, She's okay
Mm.
disappointing people, saying no, uh, you know, which is kind of a very important thing. Um, so I think with all of our kids, the focus has definitely been uh, orienting their their vision of life towards unchanging things, you know, towards eternity, really, and trying to help them even from a young age to not necessarily telling them what to think, but trying to help them learn
Yeah.
how to think things through. And so again, long conversations, just a lot of heart to heart time. And I don't remember who told us this, Elisa and I early on, but um, creating that space for children at every age, whether they're 3 or whether they're 20, creating that space for them to bare their heart and soul and whatever they're struggling with, to bring it into the light, um, really has meant more than almost anything as a parent.
Jonathan Jackson has a third child, Titus, the youngest, and for all three of them, I wonder. It's a topic of many of the parents and grandparents, aunts and uncles in my parishes. The amount of social media we allow into our children's lives, the power that social media can have in terms of their values. What did you guys decide as parents about what you would allow, would not allow, the prevalence of social medias and phones and all the rest of it? How do you manage that, Jonathan, as a parent?
Yeah, another very important question. I mean, it, it's been difficult in some ways. The technology, revolution, boom, whatever it was, it for many of us, it snuck up on us. Like we didn't understand how powerful and how dominant it was going to be. So Caleb being our oldest, he got a phone at a younger age than I would have liked. Looking back, so Titus, we've delayed that.
Right.
I mean, we've definitely monitored phone usage. Social media is a huge aspect of it. Adora doesn't have any social media. Um, and there was some kind of a group peer. It was even limited to, her peer circle kind of social media a few years ago that she really wanted. And she's 18 now, so this is probably when she was maybe 13 or 14. And at the time, we decided, not to do that. And she was a little upset at us, because her friends were doing it, and we just, stood our ground and said, no, we're not doing it. It's not going to be good for you. Within 6 months, she came back and thanked us
Wow.
because there was so much drama that she was seeing her friends go through because of this. It's a different human interaction that happens when everybody's lives are being broadcast. The potential for misunderstandings and envy and jealousies and competition and is just so high. Um, so and Caleb, he's had Instagram and over the years. I mean, he's older now as well, but he now is he's learned himself how to be cautious about these things. And that's the other thing is we're trying not to just simply tell your kids, hey, no,
Right,
but
right.
here's why we're saying no. And as you get older, you're going to have to learn how to monitor these things because even as adults, we have to do that. I look at my phone usage and I go, okay, I need to
Right, right.
get more lean on this, and so it never stops. So we're hoping that the kids will, as they're adults now, and as Titus becomes an adult in a few years, that they'll also have the tools to, yeah.
We're talking to Jonathan Jackson. We're talking about his the young people in his life, his three beautiful children. And for those who are watching, not just listening to this program, here is a picture I want to share with you, Jonathan.
Nice. That's
Nice.
great.
But I mentioned that because even though he may look like he was a kid, he really has never been a kid. He got married young, and I want to talk about that for a little while. You have a lot of years under your belt, you and Alyssa, and I'm just wondering what you thought you were entering into when you married years ago
Hmm.
versus the challenge of marriage over those years. What's different now?
Ooh, what's different now? It, there are, I mean, it's such a paradox. It's so different, and yet it's the same. That's an interesting question. I mean, in some ways, I would say that the the love and the romance deepens, but it changes as it deepens. Um, there's a lot of faith that goes into when you're entering into a marriage. You don't, I mean, you can't. It's impossible to know what you're going to be like and what that other person's going to be like in 10 years, in 20 years. There's a lot of faith that you're entering into. Um, and at least in my experience, you have to continually kind of, in some sense, be reborn. And the relationship has to go through transformations just as we do, you know? And so I think in some ways in the early years, there's this faith that you're projecting. And then, we've been married for 21 years now. Now there's all of these years and all of this time that we've lived and struggled, raised children. We've a lot of pain, a lot of hardships together. So, it's like there's a sweetness there because of the suffering that takes place in life that you can't quite have that sweetness, even though you might have a lot of love and a lot of romance in the beginning. It's There's a different kind of richness that comes um, through the struggles and the perseverance of life.
We're here talking to Jonathan Jackson, musician, writer, and actor. We have in this parish, as we have everywhere, something called pre-Cana, and the engaged couples come, and they generally now, because of our very secular society, admit that they're not very faith-filled. And I often say to them, you have so much more faith than you know if you're willing to get married, because talk about a leap of faith. You know what you've gone through
Yes.
in terms of the romance, but you have no idea what the next 50 or 60 years hold. And yet you're saying, I can love this person unconditionally for the rest of my life. And boy, what a
Yeah.
leap of faith that is. And you took that leap of faith. Why, Lisa? What was it that you saw? Because you were young, that you said there's
Hmm.
something in this woman's soul that makes me believe I can build a life with her. What did
Hmm.
she have?
Well, um, as you said in the beginning, I think there's some truth to that. I was a bit of an old soul,
Mm.
so my parents were a bit worried about me in the sense that they looked around and they didn't really know who I was gonna be able to marry. There was something, and you'd have to ask them why that is, but they just saw something in me that they didn't know. And I actually thought that for a time, which is kind of strange at that young age. And I'm, as you know, an Orthodox Christian now, but at the time I was Protestant. I knew nothing about monks or monasticism. But even at 18 years old, I was thinking to myself, I wonder if I'm just never going to get married, and I'm just gonna, you know, just live with my love for God, which is kind of a strange thing without having any of that exposure. And I didn't really connect very well with young women my age. There was something that I just didn't connect with them very well. Elisa is older than I am, and she had been through some difficult things. She had lost her faith, um, and then she came back to Christ. And really, what it was, the romance between us was primarily a mutual uh, experience with with Christ and with the love of God. And so, she was coming to a Bible study that we were having at our house for about 2.5 years before we were together. And um, I just saw she had such a love for Jesus and a personal experience of the cross. And that was more important to me than anything, really. So when we got engaged, we had never dated. We'd never been out to coffee. I didn't know her favorite color, her middle name, anything like that. But I had seen her love for God, for 2.5 years, almost every weekend over at our house with a group of people. Um, and that's what gave me the confidence to say, I don't know all the details about this person, but I know her soul and I know her love for God. And so no matter what the storm uh, that may come, and they come, that's where we find ourselves, each of us, her and I together, is in that place. I can appeal to um, to Christ, and I know that she has the capacity to hear, and vice versa. So without that, um, we would be a disaster, truly, because I'm a very passionate person, and without Christ, I'm an extremely difficult. I mean, even with him, I'm still difficult, but I would be unbearable, I think. And and she's an Italian, she's Italian, she's feisty and passionate. We would just totally implode without the humility and forgiveness and mercy of God. We would be an absolute disaster. So,
Jonathan Jackson is our guest. Jonathan, with you and Alyssa, do you have the same Christ?
wow, that's an incredible question. I've never been asked that before. Um, yeah, yes,
Okay, that's
yeah,
I
which
would think
is
that would be important.
well, you're right. It's very important. It's a beautiful question, actually. Yeah, because it's not enough for it to be on paper, or even, sometimes the same words can mean different things to different people. And um, we were very blessed in terms of journeying, into um, traditional Christianity, the ancient faith, that her and I both made that journey together. And that's a huge blessing. So yes, the language of our prayers is one, and sort of um there's a mystery there, certainly. But yeah, yeah, we have
the same Christ.
Christ, yeah.
Let's go back, Jonathan, to a family of origin. I had the privilege years ago of meeting, and I thought she was the greatest lady, your mom. But I mention it because I'm thinking of the people in my own parish community. So many parents, grandparents will come up to me and say, well, my children, my grandchildren have chosen a different path to God. And so
Mm,
when you're raised as Seventh-day Adventist, as your family was, when
mhm.
you take this journey that ends up in Orthodox Christianity, I have to believe for your parents, it's like, wow, this wasn't exactly what we expected. But how did your family negotiate the fact that we're all believers, but we're coming to our faith in a particularly different way? What
Yeah,
was their reaction? What is their reaction to this day?
yeah. It's an ongoing thing. And my parents, they were raised, each of them, probably four generations of Seventh-day Adventist. So I mean, it goes back in the family. But they were leaving that church when I was probably 8 or 9 years old. So they were on a sojourn. But we didn't, as a family, we didn't really know where we were going. They primarily knew what they were leaving, and they were searching. Um, so, and over the years, they've uh, they've been more in the charismatic Protestant world. Um, but even from there to, Orthodox Christianity, that's a very different world. So it was pretty, um, I mean, I don't want to speak for them, so maybe the words are too big, but I mean, it seemed like it was a bit shocking for them, and, disorienting, confusing. Um, and it's difficult because I had been reading Christian history for, 4 years before I officially made that jump. So I felt quite prepared. I felt like I had done my due diligence. I'd been praying and digging and searching, but I'm sure to them, they didn't have that journey in that time. So it felt much more left field. Um, Over the years, I think they've become a lot more, maybe a lot less disoriented, and they can see, the beauty of it. Um, so yeah, I mean, it is quite a journey. There's a lot that one is challenged with, to question certain things. But it's an ongoing thing. There are differences. I think it's important to be okay with those differences. I think in general we live in a time of kind of uh, a postmodern time where it's truth seems relativistic, and we tend to think that acceptance of everything is kind of the highest virtue. Um, and I still believe in truth. I still believe truth is meaningful. I think it's absolutely vital. And so I would rather lovingly disagree with someone in love and humility and respect than, you know, uh, just compromise and accept everything. Because to me, then I think we're done for at that point. So, with my family, there's some of that. We have to just kind of love each other, agree to disagree on certain things, but they're extremely supportive. Like extremely supportive of my family and my kids. And I again, I don't want to speak for them, but I
No, no.
feel their love and their support, and they can see the goodness in it and the fruit in it.
Jonathan Jackson, who I mentioned is both musician and actor and writer, is our guest on Personally Speaking. Jonathan, when you're in the arts as you are, it seems to be based so often either in Los Angeles and New York. And um, people in Los Angeles who are actors will think they're really making a big break from the Hollywood community by moving to a
Mhm.
place in Montana with lots of other actors. But I mentioned that because to decide I'm going to take my family and we're going to move to Ireland to help build an Orthodox monastery, to uproot ourselves and become, in some ways, spiritual expatriates is huge. That's a big journey, and I'm just looking to know what went into the decision, and did you realize the risk of well, we're not going to be part of the Hollywood community, and we're going to take a separate path, and we as a family are okay with that.
Mhm. Yeah. I think that's been happening in stages over the years, moving to, I mean, after Elisa and I got married, I had been in Los Angeles for about 10 years at that point. And shortly after that, we moved to Washington State because I didn't want to raise our kids in Los Angeles. I mean, plenty of people do, and that's fine. I'm sure they can do a beautiful job at it, but I was exhausted with LA and really wanted to be somewhere else. So for about 6 years, we were in Washington, you know, a bit unplugged from Hollywood, but I was still flying in, every month for meetings. And then after I got Nashville, the TV show, we moved to Nashville, to Tennessee, and that was a step away. I mean, I was obviously still working, but it's been really good for us as a family. So, and we'd been living here in Tennessee for, I guess, maybe 8 years at that point before we moved to Ireland. So, um, we were already pretty unplugged from, consistently having the LA experience. So Ireland was amazing. There was a lot of prayer and a lot of thought put into it. It was not an impetuous, we just let's go.
Right.
We spent probably all of 2019 really praying and thinking about whether we should do this. Um, the monastery, the life-giving spring was definitely a huge part of that. Um, Ireland has been in my soul and my heart since I was a child, and it still is. During the pandemic, one of the monks from Mount Athos messaged us and said, keep your children inspired. And so we've really tried to do that, but you have to fight very hard to do that. And so um, one of the best things for me anyway, just maybe it's my temperament, or I don't know, but to fight discouragement is having genuine relationships with people, being able to be vulnerable and honest is huge. And then also experiencing beauty as much as possible, whether it's a beautiful song, a beautiful book, nature. This is, as Dostoevsky said, beauty will save the world. And I found that to be the case for me. I need to, as much as possible, be around what is truly beautiful in the eternal sense. And then even the suffering takes on a different presence. There's a sense of meaning, and that it's all of it's temporary, all of it. Only the beautiful, only the good is going to last forever. So that's the struggle for me. That's where I'm trying to keep my heart and my mind focused.
I'd like to thank Jonathan Jackson for being back with us. This dear and old and treasured friend always has wonderful insights. I live in a rectory with other priests, Jonathan, and they're into their exercise and eating the right foods as if, it's going to go on forever. And I kid them sometimes saying they need to watch the movie Moonstruck, and the key line of Olympia Dukakis, Cosmo, no matter what you're doing, you're still going to die just like everyone else. So be ready for the eternal picture. And what I love about you for years is you're almost the walking embodiment for me of St. Ignatius Loyola saying, take, Lord, all receive, all is yours. And you know that, and it impacts on everything you say, you do, and how you live. And you're a great witness for me and for, I hope, everyone who has the privilege of listening to this interview and seeing you in action. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for everything you say, you do, and
I'm
who you
humbled
are.
by that. Thank God. Thank you.
As we end today's program, I want to thank you all for being with us. If you need to reach me, you can do that at personallyspeakingpodcast@gmail.com. I've been privileged to serve as host and executive producer, Personally Speaking. Our producer is Lisa Jandovitz. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll be with you again next time on Personally Speaking.